Well, what does the news do when it's short of suitable things to cover? There are plenty of stories the news can practically just pluck off the shelves, ready formed. Here are just a few of them.
Controversy.
Controversy is a gift for the news because by reporting on the controversy, you help feed the controversy, which means you can then do a report on how this controversy is growing by the hour. A good recent example is the case of radical cleric Anjem Choudary. Recently, Choudary and Islam for UK said they wanted to stage a protest in which 500 demonstrators carrying empty coffins to represent Muslims killed in Afghanistan would march through the symbolic town of Wootton Bassett. Now, this was merely an announcement, but because Choudary, seen here relaxing on the plush GMTV sofa like he's Joe Swash, has recently become a minor rent-a-jihadi gob media figure, his proposed march became big news. Soon after it was announced, it was all over the papers, while TV reporters hit Wootton Bassett to urgently canvass opinion.
And the other issue here that many have voiced to me is that this was all a publicity stunt.
All Mr Choudary really wants is publicity.
Come on, it can't just be a publicity stunt. The news wouldn't fall for that. Meanwhile, back at the studio, it was the subject of an illuminating yes-no debate.
All this is really a publicity stunt.
Now come on, it can't just be a publicity stunt. That would just provoke friction and outrage between Muslim people and others in Britain.
One of the aims of his group is to provoke friction and outrage between Muslim people and others in Britain.
Yeah, well, thank God the news isn't helping with that. By 6 o'clock, the unpublicity non-stunt was second in the running order on ITV's evening news. They started by giving valuable airtime to Choudary himself. Weirdly, he almost made it sound like a publicity stunt.
Wootton Bassett has been chosen because it will raise awareness and it will gain notoriety in the media.
They also spoke to the relatives of dead soldiers, interviewed the mayor, and told us half the internet was opposed to the idea. Plenty of promotional material for Anjem's forthcoming march, a march which definitely wasn't just a publicity stunt.
If publicity was the aim of a march in the first place, then the organisers have already achieved that.
It's a bloody good job it isn't then. By 10 o'clock, Chowdary's concrete and detailed plans for his absolutely positively going to happen protest march had made it to #1 in the news parade.
Anger and revulsion at plans by Muslim extremists to take their protest to the streets of Wootton Bassett. As the bearded unfunny man's face loomed large on the deck of the USS Newsy Prize, we were told the march looked set to cause upset, conflict and division. Of course, causing conflict, upset and division was presumably the last thing on ITN's mind when it gave Choudary more airtime by putting him in a room with a man who'd lost his son in Afghanistan and filming the inevitable subsequent row. So, Julia, a lot of upset already. Can this march really take place?
Can it take place? Come on, it's not just some publicity stunt, you know.
I think there's extremely little chance that it will.
What?
The reality is they haven't asked for permission.
No?
They haven't even got a date set.
For?
It's merely an aspiration at the moment.
No permission, no date, only an aspiration. You're talking as though this whole march thing was just the absurd pipe dream of some bunch of jobless, hype-hungry bellends all along.
When I talked to Mr Choudary earlier today, he said he was both privately amazed and really quite delighted that two little words, as he described them, Wootton Bassett, had afforded him this level of publicity.
Well, like in a publicity stunt. This march was clearly never going to happen. It was just a provocative wish, as deliberately incendiary as a member of the BNP saying they were going to build a mosque out of bacon in the centre of Bradford. But by merely suggesting something outrageous, Anjem and co were granted thousands, possibly millions of pounds worth of free publicity. In news terms, he'd given good story. Trouble is, that meant an extremist, about as representative of Muslims as Nick Griffin is of the English, temporarily became the primary face of Islam, causing a level of public and tabloid anger far greater than the size of his following, as moderate Muslims were keen to point out in a reflective and well-balanced report on ITN.
They represent a very, very small proportion of the Muslim community in this country. They do thrive on this sort of publicity, which is why it's even more important for more media outlets to pay attention to alternative Muslim voices and not give these people the disproportionate publicity they crave.
Yeah, whatever. Anjem's about to say something outrageous. Eventually, the government got involved, banning Islam for UK outright, which might not make much difference, as Andrew Neil Tetchley suggested during a confrontational encounter on the Daily Politics.
You will reassemble, won't you?
Well, look, let me put it like this. If I gather together with my friends in a local park and I decide to eat together, we decide to write a leaflet and even distribute it in the market, is that now illegal?
No, it's a picnic.